Hey guys, it's Tara here. Take two on that video. If you were joining me live 5 minutes ago when I started, sorry about that. I started getting some weird internet cell signaling issues and started getting tongue-tied as a result. So I was like, let me just start this over again. I hadn't gotten very far. Anyway, I wasn't here last Wednesday because I was traveling with my family. We had a nice vacation and I took some much needed time to just hang with them and enjoy their company. And now I'm back this week with a really important topic about hunger signals and diets and how diets aren't the answer. And here's just another reason why diets aren't the answer. When you're following somebody else's set of prescribed rules about food, it's not customized enough to you, and it's not taking into consideration things like your level of hunger, right? So our brains are designed to seek out the things that we need, such as food, and you can't just willpower your way through hunger. Eventually, if you're really eating in a calorie deficit and you're not addressing these other things, your level of hunger is just going to win out. This is when you get hangry. This is when you will find food no matter what. And despite whatever your efforts are, whatever your goals are, eventually the food will win out, okay? And this is because people are just not addressing their underlying hunger and their hunger signals and their hunger cues. So hunger is actually sort of this interesting place where a bunch of different other systems come together. So when we're talking about hunger, we have to address the endocrine system, which is our hormones. We have to address the nervous system, which includes our nerves and our brain. We have to address things like mindfulness, and the place where all of this meets in the middle is where we have our hunger and our experience of hunger. Some people don't mind a little bit of hunger. Some people actually, I know somebody who says that they kind of enjoy that little bit of an empty feeling. It feels sort of light and refreshing. Other people think it's awful. Other people will go to a very large extent to try to prevent having any kind of hunger. Maybe this is you. Maybe this is you if you have had a snack before you were actually hungry, just to try to prevent any sort of hunger from coming up. Hey, Lori, thanks for joining. This is pretty common. A lot of people do this. I'm going to go into a meeting. I'm going to be in a meeting for 2 hours. I'm not hungry now, but I'm sort of afraid that I might get hungry in the middle of the meeting. So let me have a snack right now before I go in, because you're trying to prevent it. A lot of times this also comes down to our perception of hunger. So here's another little complicated nuance, but some of us think of hunger as really deprivation. So if you're the type of person who has yo-yo dieted in the past, you've probably come to really hate that feeling of hunger because you associate it with deprivation. You have felt your body's hunger and you have told yourself that you're not allowed to eat when you're hungry. You're sort of tuning out from your body. Your brain and your body have become separate because you are not allowing your body to do what it feels like it needs to do in the moment. So you're not really honoring your hunger signals in that case. And that's really common. And if that's the case, then it's fine. It takes a little bit of work, but there's certainly ways to tune back in. So I'm going to talk about 3 of these major topics today that influence your hunger, and things that you can do to actually recalibrate your hunger cues, your hunger signals, so that you don't have to worry about that aspect of it if you're looking for some sort of a lifestyle change. Of course, the details of this are something that we can discuss further. Let me know if you have any further questions about this. I'm happy to help you individually, but this is sort of a giant, bird's eye view of things that we sort of all experience. So for number 1, internal awareness, okay? I just touched upon that when I said a lot of times when we diet, we disconnect our brain and our body, and we decide that we're gonna just not listen to our body's hunger cues. I don't care if you're hungry, I'm not gonna eat. And then sort of the reverse happens a lot of times too. Once you give in to that urge, a lot of times we eat uncontrollably, and so your body's actually no longer hungry anymore, but you've blown way past that signal, and you're just eating for other reasons, right? You're not fueling your life and your passions. You're fueling your pain at that point. You're fueling your emotions. You are feeling anxiety, you're feeling deprived, you're feeling like you need to procrastinate or you need to take a break, and that's why you're eating at that point. So you've disconnected your body's reason to eat and your brain's reason to eat, and they're two separate things now. We need to get them back together. And a big first step for that is just to kind of turn yourself inward. Pay attention. You would be surprised at how many people actually don't even notice that hunger has started until they feel famished, right? I've certainly experienced that before, being busy or whatever. All of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm starving. But I don't remember when the hunger just felt like a little buzz, right? I just kind of ignored that. So if we can stop and you can kind of take a few deep breaths, you can set a timer on your phone that every hour or 2 hours you're just checking in and just say, how do I feel right now? You know, you can do like an overall check, like how's my body feeling? How's my mind? How's my energy? But also think about your hunger. Like, am I hungry right now? Maybe a little hungry. Maybe it's approaching lunchtime, so that makes sense. But just to check in with yourself so you're getting that mindfulness and those internal cues, you can start to pay attention. The second thing is hormone and blood sugar regulation have a big impact on the way we feel hunger and when we feel hunger and how often we feel it and all of those things. So getting our hormones and our blood sugar regulated so that there's not these huge ups and downs and these big swings, but they're more steady, you know, little ups and downs, will bode really well for being able to have more control about what you want to eat. And having control over what we want to eat doesn't mean that you're not having some fun with your food. Me personally, I don't believe in that. I believe in moderation. I believe in having fun with your food, being social, having that glass of wine if you like it, all those things, but also just really trying to check in and enjoy those things. We should not feel guilty. There's no such thing as guilt food. Like, it's just food. We shouldn't be feeling guilty about these things. So, you know, getting those things regulated will just mean that you have control so that if you do want that cookie, you'll have that cookie, but it's a conscious choice. It's not that the cookie just, you know, attacked you and you didn't even know what happened. So you're still having control over what you eat, but that doesn't mean that you can't just have a little bit of wiggle room and fun with that. And a lot of that comes down to the way that you're balancing out your meals and your snacks and portion sizes. And these two things are very personal for each person, right? Me, somebody that has PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's sort of a metabolic disorder that lives in the space of high blood sugar, you know, diabetes, pre-diabetes, those types of areas. So I also like to look at it that I'm a little bit carb intolerant. I do eat carbs, but I have to be careful about which ones I choose to eat. So for me, the balance of my meals that's going to be most helpful for myself to have the most energy, to be the healthiest, to perform the best, is going to be slightly different maybe than somebody else. It also depends on your activity level and the size of your body right now and the size of your body that you are trying to get to. I believe in body love and acceptance and all of that, right? But there are people that have excess body fat and they're looking to lose that excess body fat. So if you're at a bigger size right now and you're looking to become a little bit smaller by way of reducing excess body fat and getting healthier in the meantime, those two situations have to be considered when you think about the balance of your food, right? So we're talking about carbs versus protein versus fats and kind of working those out, and overall intake. So your portion sizes are going to vary as well. But once we get that dialed in for you and your goals specifically, that's when you start to notice your hormones are more balanced. That's when you start to notice that your blood sugar is more balanced and you've got less of those sugar cravings and more control over what you want to eat. Your hunger is not out of whack. No more getting hangry. Okay, hangry is something that we can always prevent. So use it as a tool to be curious about what happened. Next time you feel hangry, just, you know, don't beat yourself up, but be curious, like, why did that happen? Did I try to go 7 hours between eating? The last time I ate, did I eat something that wasn't balanced the way that it's going to make me feel the best way? If that's the case, then you're going to possibly feel hangry. If your last meal was really high in processed carbs and there weren't really many fats or proteins to balance that out, you're probably going to feel in a couple hours that you get hangry. So getting those hormones and the blood sugar regulated is really important for recalibrating your hunger. And the last thing that I want to talk about today, the last real big thing, is regulating your food dopamine cycle. So when we eat, hey Stephanie, when we eat, we get a little release of dopamine. It's the feel-good hormone, okay? It's why we will go to great lengths sometimes to get the food that we're craving, okay? Because we want that little release of dopamine. It makes us feel really good. So once we can actually sort of break free of that vicious cycle where we're craving high levels of dopamine, so we need really hyper palatable foods in order to do that, then we can sort of have, again, more control over what we eat. So the certain foods that have been, these are not the foods that you're finding out in nature, foods that have been manufactured, they've been made in a lab, they've actually been created to be hyper palatable, extra, like, fun foods. There are people that their job is to actually study what the bliss point is that will make us just not be able to stop eating it. Things that are very salty, sweet, high in bad fats for us, high in refined carbs. And if you can find something that's got all of the above, oh man, you just can't stop eating it, right? We know these foods. These are the foods that you can't just have a little bit. These are the foods that you'll find people saying, they're my trigger foods, or, I just can't have one, I can't stop, or whatever. And there's people who it's their job to actually create these food-like products in a lab that have these very specific scientific breakdowns to make our dopamine in our brain release fire like crazy. And then once we bring the bar up to that level where our brains are now used to that level of dopamine, now it's always looking for that same level of a hit. It's really like a drug addiction, right? If you think of it that way. So what we need to do then is we need to crowd out the hyper palatable, fun foods that are made in a lab, the highly processed foods, and start replacing them with more real whole foods. That's the way to do it. So I don't believe in just pulling something from someone. You can't just say, stop eating that, because what do you eat in its place? So typically we start to try to crowd that out by adding other things. When you add a little bit more protein, when you add a little bit more, veggies, greens, things like that, all of a sudden you'll have a little bit less space. You'll desire those other things less. And when you desire those things less, you're not eating as much, and now your dopamine naturally is coming down to a normal level, okay? It's normal to eat and get that little hit of dopamine. That's fine. We're always going to get that. We're human beings, and it is part of why we don't starve to death, because we get that little hit, and now our body tells us a couple of times a day, we need to be on the search for food, right? That's an evolutionary thing that's not going away, and that's fine. But what we've done now is we've raised the bar to this level where it's very hard to compete unless you're just constantly eating junk food all the time. And then we feel like garbage, right? So you feel good in the moment, and then you feel like garbage. You're always chasing that high after that. So the tip here is to increase more of those foods that you know are good for you, right? The spinach, or the salads, or the high fiber foods, or the things that have protein, or the healthy fats, all of those things. Increase those and start to crowd out those other hyperpalatable foods. Have them sometimes. Have them when you want them. Have them when you choose in advance to have them. Like, I'm going to go to this restaurant. They have this really awesome dessert there, and I'm going to have this dessert because I'm choosing in advance to have that. It's like you're in control, right? So still have them sometimes, but when it's controlling you and you feel like you just can't help it, that's when you know you really need to calm down these other systems. Get back to a homeostasis, if you will, get back to your home base. And from there, this way, your little bit of dopamine spike on occasion when you have your fun foods are not going to be enough to really make you addicted again, okay? So in order to stick to any kind of long-term nutrition plan where you're trying to achieve your goal, these lifestyle changes and everything, you really can't ignore your hunger. Your hunger will always win out if you don't do these things to calibrate it along the way. All right, so the 3 tips that I share with you today: internal awareness, so you're going to slow down and you're going to sort of do like this mind-body check. Am I hungry? Am I feeling okay? What do I really need? Just turn your attention inward a little bit, like we so often don't do, and just kind of figure out what it is that you need. Hormone and blood sugar regulation, so you have to really get specific about the balance that your body needs and the portion sizes that your body needs. Again, reach out to me if you have questions about this. This is what I do on a daily basis with my clients, and I'm really happy to help. And then the third thing we're going to focus on today is kind of bringing down that food dopamine cycle, so you're not constantly chasing that hit. All right, so start to crowd out the hyperpalatable, fun, over-processed foods with more real, whole, natural foods. So this way you don't get those crazy spikes of dopamine, and then your body is not, and your brain is not just really running after them. That's the thing with these hyper palatable foods. Our brain loves them, but our body hates them. They don't work well with our bodies, but our brain will still always seek them out, okay? So when your brain is sending you that strong signal that you want it, just remember your body's gonna be the one that's gonna pay the price. Okay, your body does not like to process that stuff. It gets in the way. It affects your microbiome. It affects everything and your energy levels. So just try to outsmart your brain, like jump up above your brain. Do that whole human thing that we can do where we can sort of actually see our brain from up above. That's called the prefrontal cortex. It's just a part of our brain that means that we can actually sort of supersede our primal brain and kind of see what's going on. All right, so those are your 3 tips for today. I hope it helps. Let me know in the comments if you struggle with any of these things so I can come back and comment back and help you out. And if you guys are not already inside my Facebook group, it's a private group of 750 women or so, where every week I share healthy recipes that are not going to spike your dopamine, healthy recipes, workouts. We do a weekly challenge, and I do more training videos like this. So if this is something that you're really serious about, you're like, I'm doing this, I'm getting healthier, I want to get fit, I want to get strong, then come join the group. I'll post the link in the comments, and you're welcome to join as long as you're nice. As long as you're nice, that's pretty much the only rule. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day. Hey, Beverly.